a work session of the mayor and council for the city of Snellville, Georgia, Monday, February 24th, 2025 to order. We have a quorum, everyone's present. First, we're going to go through the regular business meeting, and we do want to try to save, we need just a couple minutes for an exec session. But I think a few of these topics might go a little long, so I might have to bring everybody in. So on the meeting agenda, I don't have anybody for the invocation. Anybody want to volunteer? Tabo? And then the pledge. Norman? We'll have a proclamation for the recognition of Black History Month before February ends. We've got the minute approval for February 8th and the 10th. Those are the public hearings.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it matter that that doesn't say anything about the work session from last meeting? It just references the hearings and public, regular meeting? Because you had a work session.
Yeah, it says work retreat, not work session.
Right.
Well, that was February 8th was the work, was the council retreat.
Right. And then
And then
Monday,
February 10th was the public hearing, or the regular
And-
meeting.
work session.
Yeah, I usually put meetings, but because we had the public
Okay.
hearings, I changed it, and I shouldn't have put regular meeting. Does that matter?
Okay. That was really my question. Does it matter if it's listed?
You could always, when you make the, whoever makes the motion, just don't say regular.
Work session.
Very good, I like the preciseness. We have no invited guests, no committee or department reports, which we might need to start getting back to that. We used to have departments
Yeah.
come in like once a month, and we split them out on the meetings, just to come in and kind of give an update.
Especially planning.
No, please don't.
Planning commission would be really helpful in the next few months.
Yeah.
And Board of Appeals.
The boards, you know.
Well, we did them all.
Sometimes even know what they're doing,
Right.
unless we look at their.
We did have, I don't want
Marcy
to
used
go
to
back.
come talk about Board of
We don't have to
Appeals.
decide that now, but
Yeah.
we need to look at that. So on, well, let's go through the agenda and then I'll let you know. We might have a few changes or addition. On public hearing, item A, the home rule charter amendment. That's our second read, and that's the one to reference the purchasing policy for going out to bid. Then we have second reading, the special use permit for the application by Michael Briscoe for the pharmacy. Does anybody have questions on that one? What's happening? Jake, do you want to give a little bit of an overview on the sign thing, or do you want me to tell you what I think and then?
Well, it depends, I'll let you go first. It won't change what I say out there.
So the issue with this one is, one, it should have come in for permitting before it happened. And it didn't, so now this is kind of clean up on it. And so it's coming through the special use permit. And so the issue is it a sign or is it a mural? Is kind of the question. And they've got legal definitions in terms for signage versus mural. And so in talking about this and with town center and things going forward, I mean, we want to encourage, these types of things. But this one kind of got by again without coming in first. This one kind of got by. It was already being done by the time it was noticed. But I think it does give us a good opportunity to kind of figure things out and make some definitional things, because we want to encourage that type of creativity and innovation and things like that in the town center, but we also don't want things to be out of control. So as part of this too, I think we can go ahead and consider this one. And But I'd also ask, I talked to Jay about this, about us putting a moratorium for 6 months or thereabouts on any type of new murals or
Non-compliance.
Variances from wall signs.
would that give you a heartburn for that part?
Well, would that include administrative variances, any kind of variances? And we get regular, not a ton of regular variance requests, but we do get them for what we used to could do administratively, which the state took from us. So it would stop any of that. I mean, whatever it takes. The definitions are correct, though. I mean, we just got to change the
Process.
That's a bigger discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, because the goal would be that we would institute a process for someone coming forward wanting to do some type of mural or wall, art, whatever it is, that it would, when we reconstitute our Arts Commission, that they would come in for the permit, and then if it falls outside the parameters of a legal sign, then it would go to the Arts Commission to review and make a recommendation up to the City Council. So some kind of, and I'm throwing this off the top of my head, but some kind of process like that, to where we keep the innovation and the creativity going, but we're still not running afoul of our sign.
And in this context, the Arts Commission would serve as a recommending board.
Correct,
That's planning zone.
correct, not an official decision maker. Right.
Would it go to the planning commission before it came to us? Or?
Well, I think that would go according to whatever policy we set up.
Whatever. We review it.
The SUP would have to go before the planning commission.
If it winds up being an SUP.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to clean up what I said?
No, because I don't.
I got you. The biggest,
He's a little better
the
tap
biggest
dancing.
thing about the art commission is that you need to really define what you want to accomplish, because regulating art is regulating speech, which is a First Amendment right. So what y'all think is art may not be art to everybody else. And so you can't really, it's hard to regulate art because it's in the eye of the beholder or the maker, or the paintist, or whoever it is. But so it's got to be very narrowly defined yet broad, and there's not going to be a whole lot of leeway with the art commission because it is speech as defined by the U.S. Supreme Court.
So we set up a
So maybe
architectural
that-
control board for the
Yeah, maybe
town
we do
center
something different.
instead of an art commission.
Regardless, the definition of the sign and the mural are very murky. And there's institutional and zoning type definitions that are used over and over and over because it provides the most protection for the city for the next one. It's not this one, it's the next one. That's the one you have to worry about. This one is what it is. It's the next one you have to concern yourself with. And there's a reason that the verbiage and the definitions were written, like, I don't want to say specific but loose, because the definition of a sign or mural is something that's being basically challenged in the courts all the time, because what I understand, mural cannot have a transactional nature. That's about as deep as you can go between art and signage. And so that's the line you have to straddle. So if there's anything that's even historical, that's transactional, and the mural is considered a sign, or it has been in the courts. Thus, it would be treated as a sign by the sign permit. You would regulate it based on size. So it's a tightrope, and you got to be really careful. That's why we recommended denial, not because we don't like the sign. I like it. It's a sign. In my opinion, based on our code, it's a sign. But you guys do what you need to do. I understand that, but just know that it needs to be tight, and even the first action can affect the next 20. No matter what we do after this, first action is going to set the mark. And that's why we were concerned as a department that we make sure that you at least know that that's kind of what you're up against. That's the concern, is that if you look at just the Snell Pharmacy sign, it's a logo. It's transactional. That's what,
Would you define transactional for me? I'm not sure. I know what you mean.
anytime, like,
Advertisement, basically.
well, transactional, it drives a transaction. In another
Oh,
case,
okay.
another case, it's a really good one. This guy's had this dog training or something, some kind of dog business. Well, they did a big mural on the side of the building, and it was just dogs running around, frolicking, but the dog was their dog from their logo. So even though it looked like a mural, the courts deemed it transactional because it was specific and beneficial to that person or that brand. Now, had it been some labs or some nondescript sheepdog without their, basically their logo dog, it would have been clean. So the transaction based is, does it drive a sale for somebody? It doesn't matter who it is. Does it drive a sale? And that's really the overriding law from what I've seen as far as what's a mural. Now, as a city or any kind of legislators, regulators, administrators, you want to add definitions outside of just that, and that's kind of where, right, the raised bed on a, on a surface, an organic surface. Those are the things that you can add legislatively to kind of drive the process towards that transactional state without putting transaction. But that's the way the courts have found it, over the last 10, 20 years, and with the downtowns, there's more of this stuff popping up. They've always been in cities and stuff. He's typically on the side of a wall, on a bridge, headless horseman, down on 78. That's definitely, definitionally.
Clearly not driving any transactions.
Well, right. That's art.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of where the headspace you need to be in when you think about it. I understand what's going on here, but that's why we kind of took that. We got to be really conservative just to have it on a record that, here we are. So at least we have that portion to it. You guys got to do what you got to do, and I understand that.
And I think the example I've used with Jason, Matthew, the mayor, anybody that I've talked about this is, we may be okay with the pharmacy sign, but the Shell station on the corner, which I know the city now owns, but it's a good example to use because we own it. If there was a Budweiser sign of the same size on the side of the building, which I'll be okay with that.
Or a guy just drinking a Budweiser. It could be something that simple, but it could be some guy smoking pot. It could be a lot of different things. And once you get away from, you got to be careful what you define, how you define things so you can keep them out of there. So once you allow something which you consider transactional and try to move away from it on something you don't like, that's really art kind of stuff. You're not going to win that one. So you're going to have to look at that sign too. So just remember, it's not just one, it's the next one, and the next one, and then the next one. That's the concern.
So do we put ourselves in a better position by setting up an architectural review board that is comprised of 3 members from the Art Commission, 2 members from the Planning Commission, and a designee of the mayor?
I think that gives
And then controls exterior of everything that is not specifically covered by an active zone.
it doesn't change.
I think the question still is, what are they approving?
Right, so they still gotta follow that definition ultimately, and then the courts are gonna weigh in on that, not the process. They're gonna weigh in on the decision and whether free speech was thwarted or the way they use it is the health and safety of the city, and we're allowed to flex that a little bit. You can somewhat over content to a degree if you set it up the right way. So there's some flexibility, but ultimately they're going to say, was the First Amendment speech protected appropriately, or was this transactional? And when it's transactional, that expression doesn't, corporate citizens don't have the same rights that regular citizens do. So that's kind of where you're at in between that line. It's very thin, or it's really wide. You can kind of be on both sides at once. It's a moving target.
So what are we doing today? A moratorium?
Yeah, well, we'll vote on this SUP, but we'll do a moratorium on any future applications. Obviously, we
Okay.
have to because this one's already submitted. But, and Jay just said a moratorium for murals.
Murals.
And Jason, is there a way we could word that
For the wall signs?
for the wall signs?
Variances of wall signs?
Or just leave that out?
Do you have any leeway in the code?
Any
They took it away.
non-architectural
I mean, if you got,
wall displays.
I mean, we don't get a ton of them anymore, so we're probably
Probably
okay.
okay.
But, I mean, we do get a few. I mean, when's the last time we've been on there, Betty? Like 3 months ago?
Yeah,
4
with
months?
the
Yeah, it's
pet
not,
sign.
we're pretty giving in the sign code for the most part, so most people don't apply for it anymore. When it was administrative, they're like, yeah, give me that extra 25%. We built it into the code to have them ask for it in certain situations, like further away from the road. If we don't have it, it's not a big deal. I mean, they just tell them we can't apply for variances right now. A lot of times I drive them right where we want to be anyway, so
Well,
it's
let
not
us,
bad.
yeah, let us know if you run into a problem with it.
Yeah, I don't think we will.
I
Honestly.
would say if we're gonna call it an architectural review board, seems to me there ought to be 1 or 2 architects on it rather than,
Well, and we can talk
Yeah,
about all
And
of that.
later.
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm just saying, you know, because we
Yeah.
were going down that pathway.
The 6-month period we'll discuss.
Yeah.
So moratorium on new murals or just
Murals, yeah.
Murals and variances on wall signs.
Variances on wall signs. Okay.
And that, so that will be new business item
B,
B.
B as in boy.
How long is?
Oh, yeah, till August,
How long is?
It'll be to August 31st.
can only be till the 20,
20 today, so
Whatever.
I do August 15th to be safe.
do we have a meeting by then?
We'll have lots of meetings by then.
Well, in the month of August, when are you gonna be on vacation? The 11th, okay, so the 15th works. Because that's your vacation time, so that'll fall on someone else's shoulders, probably mine.
And you can extend it if.
Bobby Howard texted me saying he would be more than happy to do the invitation.
Are you good with that?
Absolutely.
No more taking it?
You're gonna outsource it?
Why you wanna do it?
Yeah.
Did you tell him yes?
Yes, I did. And if he doesn't show up,
I got you.
Harry does.
All right, then we have second reading, split silk properties. We're gonna talk about this one here in the work session, and then we'll figure out what we're doing from there. Jason, you wanna give a rundown?
I'll give you a brief one. We got 2 plans. I won't speak about the alternate because I don't know exactly what's going on there, so we haven't had enough time. So really, it was kind of a result of, and I'll let Mr. Timler, if you'll allow him to speak on that, but,
Bobby left.
We didn't kick him out yet. Basically, you know, if we will update, we got 65 units, 18 acres, and RTH with one-way main streets and alleys. Some of those street widths and how they associate with the alleys and the driveway links are part of the reason for the alternate plan. But on its face, you've got these townhomes, one-way streets, or two-way main, but one-way alleys with only one-way in. So anybody accessing 31 through 42 is going to come down the main street, pull into their alley, and then come all the way back on the back alley because you can't enter into the main street. The only place where that's different is number 14 through 19, where there's not enough room to get that alley in. So those will actually be front load. I think there's a variance in there for that. Outside that, pretty nondescript. They've got connections. It looks like. Oh, you didn't pass them out. I didn't either. So
I'm like, what does everybody seem to be looking
Yeah.
at? And I'm not, I'm looking at my.
I got caught up on those.
And on my
Okay.
computer, I
Okay,
can't.
This is a lot bigger than,
I'm thinking, oh, that must have
Oh,
been.
sorry.
So the color's the original. Don't look at the black and white one yet.
Oh, yes, sir.
Let's just talk about that one. We'll let the applicant opine about the differences there. But outside of that, the driveway, it's a shared driveway there with the townhome development. That's really it. There's really nothing outside of the code as far as the comp plan doesn't fit that type of use. in that activity, it's actually allowed, it's promoted. You got them all? You've been here? Well, he's got two colors. All right, that's it. It's for that. So, any general questions about the design?
Okay, so which units were you saying were
31.
front load?
14
Oh,
and
those,
19.
okay, on the cul-de-sac.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think the applicant originally proposed 27 to be consistent with the adjoining property. Again, we're worried about street width, so we don't want to approve any of those. Just a matter as precedent, although it could be beneficial here. I'll let Mr. Summer speak on that. But outside of that, pretty simple, small number of units over a large net site. Most of the site is undevelopable on the western side. There is 2 neighbors that touch it. Talking about fence or trees is about all the pushback we got over there. We did get some concern about sediment and erosion from the Summit Chase folks. That's usually, it's handled, we all know that's handled by the detention ponds, and it should be better, not worse, after development. As far as mud, water, and stormwater runoff, it should protect that kind of river, stream, and lake system.
And then missing, where's the dumpsters on this one?
This is her recoveries, they'll get picked up. They'll be serviced, they're one way on the back, they'll be serviced from the rear alley, which is the reason for the rear alley is service and garages.
Now, in this right now would still go according to our code, correct? Once you do that, because I'm seeing here, it looks like look at number 41 and 40. One's got 22 feet.
Yeah,
there,
now,
one's got
that's
20.
part of the issue is that in order to satisfy the need for architectural variability on the front with the step down and the setbacks, you see how they're staggered?
Mhm.
So, and that'll bring us into kind of our next thing. There's 3 ways to clear that, and that's what the alternate was submitted for. It's kind of, we, again, don't want to get into the process of getting alternates a week before Monday, and we can't review and get them cleaned up. So if we're going to look at them hard in the first reading now, remember we're going to come in here and talk about it,
Right,
then we need to have those by then, at least.
right.
Okay, so from now on, basically, we're just gonna pick it. We're gonna get them in time. I understand that's a quick amount of time, but if it's clean, we won't need an alternate. We can just rip off the name. And the alternate here, I don't think really prescribes a ton of changes. It's just a new plan, but you can't look at the new plan heavy until you have enough time, and 4 days, when the agendas go out on Thursday, is not enough time. Okay, so
We'll give Mr. Timler a few minutes to talk about what the changes he's proposing. And then everybody can decide whether you want to do that here in the work session or when we get to the meeting on whether you want to go ahead and do the public hearing and the vote or whether you want to postpone. Okay? Up to the group. Mr. Timler, we'll give you a few minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Fagan. Yeah, just to refresh your memory, we, the council zoned the property to the north, High Point Development about 1.5 years ago. And in that zoning, you condition 2 things. You condition that we share an entrance with this property, because you saw this coming. You saw phase 2, for lack of better terms, is phase 2 of this development. So that's what we're doing. As a matter of fact, we moved it from the second, the alternate that I've given you. We've actually moved it north. We're going to lose like 5 lots in High Point development because the DOT has said there's not enough site business there. So we're working. Cinecoin Investments is working with High Point to do that. So that condition is obviously, I've got the condition here, you can see it, that y'all approved. And then the other condition was you allowed us to reduce the road width from 31 feet to 27 feet for the townhome portions. And that's all we're asking is to be consistent with that, with High Point. And in this case, you have less need for street parking because you have alleyways. This is very tight, obviously, now we get alleyways in there. And so I don't think that's a do or die for the owner. But The other small issue is just 2 feet in the alleyways, and that's why the alleys say 16-foot width, right? Doesn't say one way or two way, it just says 16-foot width in the code. So we propose one way, and all we need is 2 feet. When I say 2 feet, we're talking about architectural variations. See how they jog in and out? We go from 20, because your driveway width, or driveway length, I'm sorry, is 22 feet, because you want to be able to park possibly a F-250 or Chevy 2500 in the alleyway, and you don't want it hanging off into the alley, right? So I understand that you want 22 feet. So there's 3 ways to handle this. You can reduce. So good?
Yeah, this is the key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you can reduce the driveway length, but I don't think staff really wants to do that because they're concerned for the 250s, Ford F-250s. You can reduce the alley width from 16 to 14 feet. It's one way. If you do one way, I mean 14 feet is a huge width anyway for a one-way vehicle. Or you can reduce the front setback from 10 foot to 8 feet. Again, we don't want a wall of townhomes. We want some architectural, staggered front facades. And I think that would, it's a benefit to everybody instead of just having a wall of townhomes. So it's just 2 feet on that request. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does it? Okay.
It does to me.
Yeah, it's not a huge, we sent it last Tuesday, and Jason and I talked about it. I'm like, we don't want to confuse council with a bunch of changes, and this is not, these are the same requests we asked for from day one. We asked for these before, when we went in our letter of intent, and planning commission, of course, listened to staff like they should, and they didn't agree with the width reduction or the setback reduction. And we just need a little bit of flexibility. I think it would create consistency among developments, and we don't want to, the other alternative too is that if we don't get the 2 foot, we're going to have to reduce the square footage of the homes. We don't want to do that, but it would definitely, for every other lot, it would reduce the square footage. And obviously square footage equates to value and price, and this is going to have a lot of development costs. You got rock issues, you also got the extra infrastructure with the alleyways, so the price points are going to be a lot higher than I think they were originally going to anticipate after they get through all this. But again, we've been working with High Point for like the last year and a half. They've almost got their permit for their development, and we've worked out sewer issues with Centecoin, so they're all working together. It's been a really good atmosphere to work together, and I think it'll be a really nice development once it's done.
So what does this plan reflect, Jeff? Which changes?
And that's just the 14-foot alleyway.
To 12?
No, from 16 to 14.
Okay.
And then the relocation of the driveway on Rosebud, it just moved north towards the intersections from the DOT. That's all that
Do you
is.
have a preference in the way it's done?
The only thing is that because High Point has a 27 feet from back of curb to back of curb, when you turn in, you're gonna have some radius issues, and that's why we're trying to be consistent with what they've got.
Okay.
But
So
again, all these 2 feet.
you prefer to get the smaller consistency,
Mhm.
and then you still need either 2 foot forward
Yes,
on the setback or 2 feet off the back.
or the reduction in the ladder width from 16 to 14, yes,
Okay.
basically.
Okay, so you need for sure to maintain the consistency of the variance above, and then you don't, or there's no preference in the setback. I prefer, if we're building an alley, I'd like it as big as possible, honestly. I mean, even if it's one way, you're talking about trucks, 2 feet you're not gonna see in the front.
You're right.
It'll be a little closer to the main street if it's gonna be smaller, so it won't be, I mean, that's my preference. Either one, I think,
Well,
completes the job, if that's the way you wanna go.
And our engineers have looked at it, they got enough room for landscaping, for the sidewalk, we moved it 2 feet forward. But again, it's only for every other lot, we really don't need it for every lot, it's because we want to do some architectural variation with the facades.
Yeah, we don't want to threaten or do anything to remove any kind of greenery on that front street, because it's gonna be important, that's gonna be the only place you're gonna get your trees. So, I don't care how this is.
So, we can't ask questions here.
Yeah,
On the High Point development, and this is for either Jason or the applicant, the only street that comes into play is the street that the driveway comes off of, and for some reason, we allowed that to be 24 feet.
See.
Correct, so that, there's no alleyways in that, and there's no, so everything takes place on that 24-foot wide place. And you
You said
want,
no parking there, right?
I believe that that was a restriction, so, and the, going to what's shown on the new drawing, 31 feet, that meets our code as far as the road width?
Yes.
Okay.
Which one, the new one?
Yeah,
Maybe they have it designed like that, but their preference is to not do
right.
that.
So this shows,
The new drawing shows 31 feet back of curb, which is our 27 feet paved surface, which is what our
Oh, sorry, it doesn't. Wait.
street
it
surface.
certainly does.
Yeah,
So do you still, if you get 31 feet there, you still need to get 2 foot closer to get 22 on the back of every other one?
Yes.
yeah, so that predicates the need for going from 16 to 14. And as the mayor pointed out, the lanes on Highway 78 in places are 10 feet wide. So
That's right.
if we can go 55 miles an hour on a 10-foot wide, hopefully 14 won't create a speed issue.
Well, I feel better with it being one way only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, even at 16 feet, you're gonna have a hard time having two-way traffic with big trucks.
Okay, so really, I think the major question here is, are y'all comfortable with going forward in the meeting?
Are we ready to adopt this plan? I'm not ready to adopt it. I mean, unless you're very specific on what the request is and Jeff's clear about what he needs to make this work. Because we, again, we're gonna have less than a week. To get the table.
So
Yeah, with
the
this-
applicant was fine with tabling.
Yeah, with this, I'd really like to look at everything again.
And then our question for you, Jeff, would be, I know you said not the next meeting, but a month. Can we go to the meeting after that?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Now, if we're gonna do all that, can we just come back and do one public hearing?
Yeah.
Like, let's just present one plan, because that's, I think, where we get lost.
Yes.
Right.
And then-
Yeah.
And here, we're good,
Yeah.
because we can talk about it. We get up there and we start making motions, it starts getting convoluted.
Well, I think we were talking about just not even having a
Right.
public hearing on it.
Right, well, wait,
Right, if everybody was,
Table the whole thing.
So you only have.
Yeah, yeah, and then I think at that point, we can take we'll have some time between then to take a straw poll or whatever we want to do in the work session, even without the applicant here, to say, hey, how do you want to lean, which plan you want to move forward with? Which fix do you want to use? Do you want to do off the front, or you want to do 2 in the back? And we can pound it all out, and then we'll present one plan, one set of conditions, one set of requested variances that the applicant agrees to, and
Awesome.
we're good with, and
Yeah.
then it'll be
Not
so
adding
much
conditions.
smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
What meeting are we saying?
Although I
the
did-
motion would be to
That would be
table to
March.
April 14th.
April
Oh,
14th.
Hang on, Norman has questions.
Yeah, this property is running from Cooper Road to Rosebud, is that? what-
No, this is on Rosebud from 78.
To,
Do you know where Action Rewards is? Like, if
oh,
you-
yes.
It's right
It's
there
right before
between,
that.
it's right down, it's just
I
that
got
little
it.
flag lot. They basically couldn't do anything with this until kind of the
So
above.
Norman, that building, I'll show you real quick. This building right here is Action Rewards.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that'll help you order. It's kind of an obscure piece of
a
property.
rectangle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did the bigger development a while back. And this is coming in, and I don't know if you remember or not, that they had talked about
Yeah.
another one.
I think I was on planning
Actually,
commission
yeah.
for the big one.
Yeah.
You were. Almost like our application for our-
Okay.
Sorry.
For that
I
one?
was starting to get stressed out thinking we were gonna do this.
Yeah.
Same.
Okay.
All right, what's next?
Now, item D, the UDO 2501, we're going to ask as well to postpone this one and in conjunction ordinance 2025-04.
Want to talk about it?
Yes. And those, but before we talk about those, we would ask for postponement to March the 10th, to a date certain. And we're going to talk about why.
Is that postpone or table?
Table.
Table.
She went?
March 10th.
March 10th. As included in the UDO update was some things with the alcohol ordinance, if you remember, for special event centers.
Right.
And then the ordinance as well, so that was partly in the UDO, and then we had another ordinance for the alcoholic beverages for special use permits and, or special
Number
event
E,
facilities.
right?
And then Jason and I got to talking about things last week, and he was running through all of the changes, and I was bringing up but if, and it was gonna.
That's really good.
Huh?
It was good though. Got us where we
It was, because we would have had some real problems here.
And me and Jason did the same what if after.
Yeah, we have a bunch of ifs after that. John Dennis got that on it. This is it.
Okay, so it was after all of the what-if conversation that we had that they've come up with some new changes to that. And we don't want to, update the UDO without having this all hammered out.
There'll be a fee schedule too attached. When we finally do get there, we have a fee schedule amendment that will encompass those changes, but we got some other stuff coming. Remember when the legislation told us we had to change the way we do permits as far as the levels and the tiers, and that's basically what we have. So we'll discuss that and we'll roll it all in at once. There's no reason to do any of it until it's clean.
Okay.
So long story short, we talked about the UDO. I'll leave this fun part to Jay, but the UDO amendments basically were the only ones that have really changed. We talked about them for a while now, the dumpsters. Let's see, we got the dumpsters, rear entry access to make it part of the code. We're dealing with medical cannabis, CBD stores, all those were pretty easy. We talked about food trucks and how you wanted to see them. Well, what that left us with was how do we want to govern these special event venues? How do we want to, especially the ones that we want to allow to serve alcohol, which we feel like for a legitimate event venue, including our own, we need to have that opportunity, but how do you do that and remain safe, legal, in line with the state, their tax structure, and then ultimately, what does that look like on the ground in Snellville? So what we ended up coming up with in the UDO was we took a conservative approach on who we give these licenses to. And a lot of that revolves around the same things we did if you want to think back. And I see this kind of as not the same use, but the same concerns as the churches popping up in the shopping center, the religious places. So we focused on where we feel like we'll have the most impact. These are going to be on the weekends, typically, very few during the weekend. We focused on providing parking. Parking was on top of what's already there, so if you've got, let's use the one that we have on the hill across from the Quick Trip, if you've got Michael's and you've got all those others, you got to be able to park those, plus your place basically in a maximum type environment. Think Christmas Eve at Walmart. The busiest it can be, because what we don't want to have is people parking in other properties, other people's places of business where it becomes a traffic issue and could be safety issue. So parking was a big deal. We also want, and it was one space per 3 fixed or another number per size of space, but we took basically what everybody else was using and tightened it a little bit more. Just a little bit. So look at those when you're looking at the UDO. I think that's one of the most important things. And then also the size of the space. You want to have a lot of tiny spaces. I feel like those end up in shopping centers, and then it promotes more of the activity that we're concerned about with a special event venue becoming a pop-up club or a bar open to the public. So the main portion of these special event definitions and how they relate to alcohol is tied to a private invite type of event, not a public event. And then specifically with the SUP, and I'll just give you the basics and we can get Jay with the what ifs, but if you want to serve, first, you don't get a liquor license from the city as a special event. You have to come to you guys first. You got to vet them. So no special event venues will be grandfathered in to serve alcohol. And if they want to serve alcohol, they have to first come see you, meet the requirements of the SUP. If we have a condition, a place where they have almost enough parking, but they're probably good, that's when you could consider a variance. I think we can vary from those, but it gives you the opportunity to make the decision based on the applicant, which I think the applicant is important too, the quality of the applicant. You get a good feeling. If they go through that process, that means they're serious. You know, they want to be able to do it. So if they make it through the SUP, that doesn't allow them specifically to serve alcohol out of their hands. They have to use a licensed caterer, an alcohol caterer, and, you know, serve some kind of food. We weren't super specific with that because it's hard to be, but typically.
We did make the food be required by a caterer as well.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna cater alcohol, you gotta cater food too. What that means, you know, it's kind of, we'll kind of see that as it goes, but that's part of the premise. And then you have to use these licensed caterers. They can be local, they can be non-local, they have to be licensed by the state, and then they have to have a local license somewhere like Duluth or,
We did it either within Gwinnett County, by the county, or the city of Snellville. So
right.
we're recognizing all the cities in Gwinnett County as well.
You're right.
Yeah.
So you have an opportunity, and hopefully we can license some of these people internally as local caterers, and there'll be a lot of sharing within the city. That's kind of what we want to do. Our guys take care of our guys. It's kind of how we want to set it up. But then also, that's the main pull behind the special events. If you get a SUP, then you got to use a caterer, and then you have to report your events. If they're, you know, every time and the major places aren't going to have 20 events a week. They're going to have one on Saturday, maybe one during the week. But before they get permission to serve at that event, they'll send us we'll have a little permit that says what type of event is it, how many people. That'll predicate how much security you have. You know, what time of day, any kind of traffic concerns, and basically we'll just make sure, and who's your caterer. They have to provide their licensing, and that's where we make sure they go to the state, and that's kind of where our liability is protected as well. We've looked at all this, now we know how many people are supposed to be there, so enforcement, Johnny or the police come up on a rowdy one, they have the permit too, and say, you're supposed to have 25 people, there's supposed to be 2 security guys here, this is supposed to be the caterer, where is everybody? And if, you know, we'll do spot checks too to make sure people are abiding by the rules. And then that gives us a way to shut down bad ones and just, you know, make sure we keep our eyes on it. We don't expect there to be, you know, 5 or 10 of these a week, you know, a couple with a few venues that are legitimate. So it won't be an administrative nightmare. At first we were worried about that, but after talking about it, I feel like the extra control is important, especially with alcohol, especially given the circumstances of what's going on. So that's the basics of the special event facility. Did I miss anything big in here? And that's specific to that. We made a lot of different changes, but.
Will it specify that security is police?
Yeah, we wrote that in there too. We wrote something in there about security.
It's up to 100, I think 100 guests, you have to have at least 1 police officer, and then over.
And it
100,
goes
you have to
local
have 2.
preference too. We put in the same we had it in for stat and all that other stuff. So we make sure to protect our guys too. So as far as.
So all of you have this? I'm just watching time.
Yeah, real quick.
But if we all have this, this is what was emailed out?
Yeah, that's just very specific that we have a really quick, and just come through, we have some temporary special events that the mayor was worried about, or concerned about. How do we operate in civic spaces and church spaces, commercial spaces, and we broke it out from each one. We basically give the church, you know, and civic institutions a little more leeway to apply for events. They don't have to have a special use event. So we allow a lot of options. Read through them. They get a little hairy, so take some time. If you have some questions,
Think
call Jay.
through, if you
Call
come up with
Jay.
some what ifs,
Because
Yeah.
him and John are the code guys. I mean, the idea.
give them a call and say,
Churches
what
are
if this
excluded,
one?
the Masonic Lodge is excluded.
We're exempted, or we're allowed to operate in certain districts within as a, what did we call it, a civic cultural event or something?
Nonprofit civic facility.
Right, so we're able to
Which is our
operate over
event
there
center.
within the town center, and that is the city of Snellville only, not other nonprofits, the city of Snellville. So we can operate there. Under the code, we could operate in the park if we wanted to do something, no problem. This is a CI zoning, or with anything we have within the town center, our stuff, we can operate. So we protected ourselves. So that's basically what we're dealing with, and then tightening up some of the other small stuff, because it was old. This code, I think, is 15 years old already. A real major rewrite, and this one was, for this section, was an entire draft from nothing. And Jay did a good job starting from where we were and getting us across the finish line, so it needs to be looked at, but that's the guts of it.
The only thing I would add is that under churches, I would like that to be freestanding churches on their own parcel, so we don't end up with
The
our shopping center churches being used at that same level.
Yeah, it can be owned by the church.
You gotta be careful with that.
No, I
because
don't-
Some churches are set up different.
Yeah, it has to be freestanding.
That takes care of it.
Yeah, you look at it. I don't know who owns it.
I was just asking a question.
Yeah, no,
Because I think you have, there's some issues, of some of the different denominations do things differently.
yeah, because I
But
know
that's-
12 Stone is owned by the Wesleyan group, and
Yeah.
St. Oliver's is by the Archdiocese of Atlanta. I don't know what the other churches
Well,
are.
Methodist is like the board of trustees.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's-
so it's just, it doesn't need to be a lease in a shopping center.
Jay, would you check one sentence that didn't make sense to me? On page 7, the second sentence under section 6-192, it says, for a period not to exceed 3 days for an approved small or event.
Look at small,
Yeah,
define
that,
small.
well, yeah.
Small or
Oh,
event.
the or, I think the or is wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's just a
Oh,
typo.
small event, okay,
Yeah.
the or should
Yeah,
come
that
out,
makes
okay.
sense.
I was trying to make sense of
Yeah, I
that
was doing,
sentence.
it wasn't
But
computing.
we probably need to define small,
We should,
Yeah,
because
anytime
10
there's discrepancy.
10 and 100 is even small.
Compared to 100 and 1,000, right?
Well, it's a 40,000 square foot facility, 100 is small.
Right.
Okay, if we can move on to our last item here for the meeting. And that's House Bill 581, floating homestead exemption. There's been a lot of what ifs on this one too.
Yeah.
So what you've been presented with is the resolution to either opt in or to opt out. Our quandary is going to come in if a vote were to go, and essentially, I will call for a motion, and then a second. Once we have a motion and a second, then we can discuss and debate, and talk it out, and figure things out. But if we were to have a 3-3 vote, or if the motion was to opt in, and it fails, to get a majority, then we feel like we're gonna have to have an affirmative vote to opt out, because a resolution has to be sent to the state if we're opting out. And we couldn't do that just because a motion to opt in failed. So this will be a little bit confusing depending on how the initial vote goes.
Is there a resolution number, Melissa, that we have with that? Regardless of whether it would be in or out, 25 dash something.
a whole bunch
Documents tonight.
We don't usually have.
2025-03.
03.
That's the in or the out?
That's both, because it's only
Can
gonna
only
be
do
one or
one.
the other.
In or out?
It's like a two-headed coin.
Are you in or are you out?
Okay.
And I just will remind everybody, if there's a tie both ways for whatever reason, that's a no vote, you will be in, you know, by law, so.
Is everybody clear as mud on that one? We'll have you there to work us through. All right, we've got 7:23, and we just got through the regular business meeting. Correspondence, I did just get a letter from the Purple Heart, the chapter of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. They're having a convention in April, and then also in conjunction with that, they're having a dinner. So I will scan this and send this out to everybody. Or better yet, could I have an app scan out and send it out to everybody? You'll get it a lot sooner.
Thank God it stopped there.
Any other correspondence? City Attorney's report?
It's not
Brief
there, it's
executive
going to
session
the-
if we have time.
Ongoing projects? Anything big?
Yeah, I mean,
Sidewalks on.
yeah, sidewalk is done, it's just punch list stuff now. If you had a chance to drive by Crooked Can last week, they had their brewing equipment all out in the street. They were moving into the building, which is kind of cool to see. Parkside has their permits. Taqueria, hopefully will have their plans reviewed by us this week. And some good permits, and they should be off to the races there. One thing, and I know we're short on time, but as far as the park goes, so we talked about the retreat. Staff working on kind of a operating budget for the new community rec center to give folks an idea of what we think that will cost there. I will send a memo to follow up on this because I want to spend a little more time here, but we don't have that time. But high level, what we're looking at is in order to run that center, most of the costs will be our personnel, which is true in any organization. So what we would recommend is 2 full-time positions. So a deputy director and the program coordinator, which is a position that does a lot of the activities and things there. And then the rest of the folks, there'd be 9 part-time folks that would be there. So it ranges from rec folks that are helping with certain programs that we have, basketball, volleyball, pickleball, I mean, all of that stuff. The community aspect of things that we'd be doing there. You've got facility assistants, which would be the folks that are taking care of the space, making sure it's clean, the basketball court is swept, all of that stuff. And then a few more assistant coordinators to kind of help the programmatic side as well. And so between that, utilities, some routine maintenance on the building, which wouldn't be a lot initially, except for, what would be to clean the courts once a year, to make sure those are actually not more than just swept. You're looking at a little bit over $500,000 to run that stuff. So Lisa has done a great job of trying to keep the personnel costs down. I mean, having part-time folks only saves quite a bit of money when it comes to benefits. Health insurance, vacations, things like that. So like I said, I'll follow up with a memo, but we think that's doable, for this project. There are some other kind of just, outstanding building costs that we're trying to find additional funding for. There's been more calls for requests for community-based projects for next budget, even though we have money in this budget. If they passed a budget, it would be included. I don't know, and our rep with Congresswoman McBath's office doesn't know if they're going to adopt a budget formally in March or if it'll be another continuing resolution, which is basically taking the existing budget and saying we're using this budget continuing forward. As far as the state goes, we have a request for funds from the state as well. And it's been given to the Appropriations Committee Chairman there and has been signed by 15 of the 22 delegates from Gwinnett County. I don't know how that money would come to us because usually that's through, DNR or DCA or some kind of funnel through some grant or program. So if there's some money sitting around somewhere, that's news to me. But that would be great if we could get that as well. So
how much that state amount is?
We asked for $2.5 million.
From the state? The state.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
majority leader,
Representative Adina asked me to put together a letter. So that would allow us to, you know, with the way the bids came back, that would allow us to be able to go ahead and do
Yeah,
the courts and the pickleball courts.
and the majority leader in the House
it's
has
in good shape.
signed his name on it, so
Right,
he
right.
supports us.
So, yeah, like I said, we're not aware of any kind of money funds like that, but
Never.
he asked for the letter, so I'm glad we gave it to him.
Yeah. And we'll submit for next year's budget too. I mean, you know, as many lines in the water as we can have on that sort of stuff, you know, the better. So,
Okay.
but that's my report. I know we've got.
Should we come back after the meeting for the exec session, or should we just go ahead and do it real quick?
It'll take 30 seconds or less.
Okay. So if we could put the loitering and the curfew discussion off till the next meeting?